Today, we're going to talk about why the Detroit Lions are the most disappointing team in the NFL. Let's get straight into it. So, the Detroit Lions going into this season had very high expectations. They just came off of a 15-2 season, and before that, they were 12-5 and made the NFC Championship. Last year, obviously, they went 15-2, but injuries derailed their entire season, where they eventually fell to Jaden Daniels, who was having a generational rookie season. Now, we go into this season, and team's getting healthier. Offense pretty much stays the same. The only thing they lose is Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, and then they go into this season and they lose week one, and then that kind of just starts a slow decline, kind of exposes their flaws. So, Tanner, what do you think? Like, why have the Lions been playing so bad?
Um, I think they're playing bad because one, obviously they don't have their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator, and I think Dan Campbell's calling the plays on offense, and I don't think he's an offensive coach or whatever. So that's one of them. And like another thing, Jared Goff has played bad. He went versus Max Brosmer, and Max Brosmer won, and he literally threw for 50 passing yards and
Yeah,
did better than Jared Goff somehow. So I
yeah,
think it's partially on him, but also on like the coaching that they're missing that like offensive coordinator piece.
yeah. I want to hone into that game specifically. That game, one was on Christmas. Two, that game was to keep you in the playoff. Like, if you lose that game, you're out. And of course, Minnesota's not an easy place to play in, but you put up 10 points. And when you look at the stats, the Lions' offense ranks sixth in passing yards, sixth in yards a game, 13th in rush yards, and third in points per game, and you only put up 10 points. Now, defensively, they're a bad team. But, when the game's on the line, they didn't show up. And that was the same thing last year against the Commanders. So I think it's just interesting to see how the Lions have performed this season in critical situations. And that's not the first time they kind of fell asleep in a game like this. Pittsburgh at home, they lose by 5 points. Obviously, kind of a controversial call at the end of that game, but you still lose that game. And then Detroit, lose by 7 points. They've just lost some close games that they could have won.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna hone in on the defensive stats. So defensively, they've ranked 18th in yards per game, 18th in 23 or 8. They're 23rd in points allowed per game. They're 16th in rush yards allowed per game with 1,882 or 135 a game, and then 19th in pass yards per game with 3,490 or 218.1. Tanner, what are your thoughts on that since they lost Aaron Glenn and their team's kind of been more healthy than last year's?
So the Lions this year, I don't feel like they lost any key pieces. Or yeah, and you're getting Aiden Hutchinson back. Like I don't really know. I mean, the only thing you could blame it on is that like you don't have Aaron Glenn. That's the only thing you could blame it on. Like I don't
Yeah,
see why they're not doing as good besides that, or if they're playing like better competition. But I don't know about that. But yeah, I think you just have to blame it on that you don't have Aaron Glenn anymore.
yeah,
Yeah, because I feel like their team's the same.
yeah. I agree with that. And I remember watching that Philly game in Week 11. The announcers were saying, "Oh, you bring in Kelvin Benjamin, their new defensive coordinator, and or whatever his name. I think his name's Kelvin Benjamin, but that you bring him in, and he's been so good for them, and you hold the Eagles to 16 points on and still a loss, but then literally in their next slate of games they give up 27 at home to the Giants in an overtime win. You lose 31 to 24 against Green Bay. You lose 44 to or you win 44 to 30 against Dallas. You lose, give up 41 points. Lose, give up 29 points, and then you lose again, give up 23 points. And that's just like kind of interesting to me. Like it really shows how much coordinators in the NFL like really play a part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I, I think it's literally just on that Aaron Glenn left. Like, I feel like this next season upcoming, now that I think they're eliminated from the playoffs, right? I'm pretty
Yeah, they
sure
are. They are.
that this off season you gotta get some. You have to 100% get an offensive coordinator because Dan Campbell cannot be calling the plays because I don't think he's that good.
Yeah.
And defensive coordinator, I don't know if you have your guy. You might, but you just gotta. I feel like you look for someone to fill that position. I guess.
Yeah. Now, it is something to mention. The Lions have been a very injured team throughout the season, especially on the offensive line. Penei Sewell's been kind of battling some like back injuries. Taylor Decker, who's also a starter, who's been a top starter for them for years. Kirby Joseph has missed some time. Frank Ragnow missed some time. Zach Cunningham has missed some time. Amon Ra has been battling a knee injury over the past couple weeks. Aleem McNeil, same thing. Marcus Davenport. They've been very injured this season, but I don't think you can't necessarily count that against them this season, because when you look at last season, they were very injured defensively and they still managed to go 15-2. So I don't really
Hmm.
know if that's like an excuse. And Dan Campbell preaches the next man up mentality. So it's kind of like you can go one way or the other way with it. You can say injuries have derailed their season, or you can say look at last year's team. They went 15-2 with all those injuries. You can't account injuries for them.
Yeah, that's 100%. And like their rushing game, I don't think it's been as good as last year.
Definitely hasn't.
Yeah, but that's what you said. Like the O line, like the injuries, but also Frank Ragnow, he retired, and like that was a big loss.
Yeah.
And ever since, like I feel like ever since they've just been way worse in rushing. I feel like there was a statistic about it, but I don't know all that. But yeah, like I feel like since he retired, like they've just been way worse rushing.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the Lions, they're a team that maybe this year was a transition year. You have two new coordinators. Maybe you give up the play calling to Dan Campbell, or you get a new offensive coordinator and you let him call the plays. And then defensively, you bring in some pieces. You bring in some pieces, maybe some new linebackers, maybe re up on the defensive line in the draft, and then get some new corners. Malik Muhammad out of Texas maybe could slot in. Terrion Arnold has been a bad corner for you, completely bad.
Hmm.
Terrion Arnold, he didn't play a lot of games. He didn't play a lot of games this year, but Terrion Arnold was bad, and he's been bad for a while. So maybe you give him that one more chance, to go out and prove yourself this season. But he's been bad for you. So maybe you draft his replacement, or you draft somebody, you sign somebody in for agency to help you give kind of a comfort for what Terrion Arnold has been for you. And 23 points allowed for a Lions team that had high expectations, that got back Aiden Hutchinson, that got healthy. That's unacceptable in my eyes. They're allowing 23 points as a team that's wanting to contend. That is not a recipe for success at all.
Yeah. This off season, I feel like they got to do something.
Yeah.
Like they got to do something to like I don't know, because you have the talent on your team. It's just you're missing something, and I feel like this off season they'll probably get that and probably bounce back
I
this off
100
season.
I 100% think it's on the defense. I think the offense has gone quiet in some games against Minnesota last week, against Philly, against Green Bay week 1, but that's week 1. You can't really count that on them. But then we see games where they drop 52 on Chicago, who clinched the playoffs. They drop 38 on Baltimore, 34 on Cleveland, who's the second best defense in football. You drop 44 on Washington, 34 on New York, 44 on Dallas. It's a bad defense, but you drop 34 on LA. So the offense is there. It's set. But defensively, that's really like where you got to improve this offseason.
Yeah, their roster I feel like is good. I mean, maybe like you said, you could draft like a corner because Kieran Arnold is bad in my opinion,
Yeah.
and I feel like you don't have anyone else there. Like that's wait, am I forgetting someone?
No, you're not.
Yeah, I feel like you don't really have like that key piece at corner. Yeah, so drafting someone like Malik Muhammad, that would be great for them
Yeah.
if he's there, obviously, but he probably will. No, I feel like they're just missing something, and I feel like they'll work on it this offseason, and I think they'll be way better next season.
Yeah, it is something to mention that Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch have been on IR. Taron Arnold's been on IR. Ennis Rakenshaw's been on IR. They definitely have a lot of injuries to their depth pieces, but I I don't know. It's like, yes, you have injuries to some stars, but that shouldn't really hinder you considering last season how good they did. I just think the defense needs to be better on this team. It's been terrible this season. It's been bad, underwhelming, but offensively they've been good. I just think in some certain games, Jared Goff will fall asleep. Jared Goff will kind of go stale, kind of go stagnant, and then you'll need a big play to bail you out. Like take the Giants game for example. The Giants had no business being that close in that game. No business. I get it, the defense, but if you watch that game, New York was winning in that game. They were winning against Detroit in Detroit. The Giants had 517 yards. Once again, that's a knock on the defense. But Jared Goff, in no scenario, should be getting outplayed by Jameis Winston. No scenario.
Yeah.
Shouldn't.
Wait, another thing I want to say. Of reason why they've fallen off. I feel like on on fourth down, I feel like they've been getting stopped. Like last season, like
Oh
I feel
yeah.
like they were unstoppable on fourth down. But this year, I feel like the teams kind of like know like that they're gonna go for it on fourth down and what to expect. I feel like that was a big reason why they're doing worse this year.
Yeah, like take the Philly game for example. Philadelphia had like 5 fourth down stops. They faked the punt. They kept trying to go for it on fourth down. Philly would get stop after stop after stop. Jared Goff looked uncomfortable out there. Jared Goff got hit on every throw. I think Detroit had holes last season that they could cover up because Ben Johnson's play calling really bailed them out of a lot of games, and their offense looked unstoppable. Aaron Glenn was such a good defensive coordinator that he was working with the scraps because his team was hurt, but they were still winning games. And I think those kind of holes got covered up a little bit because of good play calling and just great talent offensively, to where your offense was always gonna keep you in a game, and your defense would just need to do good enough, and you could win. But I think this season, when you lose a play call like Ben Johnson, and you lose a play caller like Aaron Glenn, or a coordinator like Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, your holes that were there last season will start to appear.
Hmm.
Because Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, or Ben Johnson specifically, he goes to Chicago, has a slow start, but then look what he's doing with Caleb Williams in Chicago. Aaron Glenn, all things considered, hasn't been a bad coach in New York. It's just New York is a bad team, bad
Yeah,
roster.
he just had no talent to work with, and like Aaron Glenn, they're rebuilding.
Yeah,
Like they weren't like
exactly.
Chicago; they had the pieces. Like Aaron Glenn has to get those pieces. That's why you're trading away your star players
And
to like
he's
rebuild.
yeah, he's got so many draft picks to work with in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But I think Chicago, or not Chicago, I think Detroit, they have a lot of holes. I think they got exposed this season, and I think this year they should have gone all the way. And also, what's up with not giving the ball to David Montgomery? Really? David Montgomery should be getting the ball so much more than he has. Last season, he got hurt late in that season, but last season he had 12 rushing touchdowns in 14 games played, and he had 700 yards. This season, he's played 16 games, has 150 rush yards, 150 attempts, 600 rush yards, and 8 touchdowns. Now, all things considered, for most running backs, that's a career season. But when you have was Knuckles and Sonic, that duo of Knuckles and Sonic with David Montgomery and Amon-Ra, or Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery needs to get the ball. And they just haven't gotten the ball. And I think that's another thing. Your play calling is a big issue to why you're losing a lot of these games, because you're not giving the ball to people that will win you these games.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So really, I feel like it all wraps up to like, you don't have the offensive coordinator and you don't have like the coaches that are there, and because you don't have them, like your defense, like what you were missing gets exposed if you don't have that,
Yeah.
that good coach. And I feel like that's what it comes down to. And fourth down, everyone kind of knows, everyone's kind of picked up on the fourth down thing, and like that like you gotta win, be able to get fourth downs if you want to win. And I feel like everyone else is doing that, and I feel like they did it better than the Lions this year. And I feel like it just comes down to those things,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, like when Dan Campbell started doing his thing when they went on that huge win streak, 3 years ago now, and then the year after they go 12-5 NFC Championship. Then the year after they go 15-2. Everybody's like, "Oh, Dan Campbell's an amazing coach." But this season he's gotten exposed. He has not been a great offensive play caller. But also you got to keep in mind earlier in the season their offensive coordinator was calling plays and Dan Campbell calls plays offensively. So that's been a little weird. Play calling's been weird, but defensively they've been a bad team. Dan Campbell has been exposed for somebody who takes risky plays but doesn't always execute on those risky plays. Because there's two types of things you can do. You can take risky plays. You can go for it on fourth down. You can go for it on third and long. Like you can try to take a deep shot on third and long, or you can go for it on 4th and 3 and hope for the best. Those risky plays have worked, but they're not always going to work, and they haven't worked this season. And that kind of exposes Dan Campbell as somebody who will kind of just take a risky play to try to get a good result. And with the talent around the Lions, where I think earlier when the Lions were doing good in the last 2 years, the talent that the Lions had was really good. Like
Yeah,
Amon-Ra and J-Mo, they were two up-and-coming guys that teams didn't really know how to stop. And especially J-Mo last year, who's been a really good deep threat last year, and especially this year. And then Jameer, same thing. But then this year you go into it, teams are like, okay, the Lions haven't done anything offensively to change except maybe get a little worse in the O-line. Now they know how to stop Amon-Ra. Now they know how to stop J-Mo and Jameer and David Montgomery and Sam Laporta on those 3rd and short, 4th and short situations. Another thing to keep in mind, Sam Laporta did get hurt earlier, and same with Brock Wright. Honestly, that affects you as a team, but I honestly believe that's not an excuse. Tight end's a big position, of course, but you should still be winning these games, especially against Minnesota, especially against Pittsburgh at home. We saw yesterday Pittsburgh loses 6-13 to Cleveland. Cleveland's a great defense, but in no situation should Aaron Rodgers be getting outplayed by Shedeur Sanders.
I feel like in the NFL today, everyone like knows. Okay, everyone's going for fourth down a lot more. They're like, okay, fourth down, you gotta be able to get fourth down. And I feel like the other teams have like learned that now from, I guess, the Lions, and I feel like they're just doing it at a better rate. And I feel like the Lions, they didn't really do anything because they thought, oh, we're 15-2, we're good.
Yeah.
All they did was lose their coordinators, and they thought we'll be fine. But clearly they weren't, and they gotta. I feel like this season kind of humbled them. Like, okay, we're 15-2, but we still gotta work on like other stuff and improve the team every single season. And I feel like this year they realize that, and this offseason they'll do that, and I think they'll be better.
Yeah, I agree. I think every team has their great season, and then they'll have that season that humbles them, and then they'll be back. And I think the Lions, they saw what they did last year, and they said, wow, we were injured. Imagine us healthy. And then they get healthy this year, and then maybe last year was just a really good fluke season, and they just put it all together, and the teams adjust. And I think, like every other NFL team, teams adjust, teams get better, and teams game plan. And I think the Lions will do the same thing. And I think they've been very disappointing this year, but I think next year, they will really put it together next year. They will really get the pieces that will help them, and I think they'll be fine next year. Well, that is all for today's episode. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.